Prioritizing health and fitness is a lifestyle choice that we all have to make, which contributes to the longevity of our lifestyle and health performance. According to a report from McKinsey Company published in 2025, it revealed that 84% of U.S. consumers hold wellness, which includes fitness, as a top priority. Furthermore, nearly one-third of consumers also told McKinsey Company that they work out and exercise specifically to increase their life longevity. According to a recent report from my friends over at AARP, it revealed that 93% of adults over the age of 50 believed that regular exercise and committing to it would help them live a longer and healthier life. This is all positive news for my friend Aaron Hines to consider and analyze to help him maximize his value in the fitness industry. Hines is a celebrated personal trainer who played football in college and has a competitive spirit to help his clients reach their fitness and health goals. He says that his core mission is to help adults over the age of 45 move pain-free, transform their bodies, and achieve true longevity. He's got a master's in exercise physiology from Florida State University. He's also spent nearly a decade in the trenches building his business, coaching his clients, and delivering the science of high performance without the hype. He's also had the chance to train with some of the most elite athletes in all of American sports, including Bruce Matthews and PGA Tour professional Brent Snicker. He joined me this week to talk about the science of exercise, the need to make sure that the older generation values their longevity, how to extend it, and how to make exercise feel less cumbersome and more approachable for all American adults. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. So, Aaron, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, my friend. And I'm super excited to learn about how athletics and fitness have played a major role in your life. Great to see you, my friend, and happy Saturday to you.
Happy Saturday. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Aaron, I know that you've got a collegiate background that you've also sort of melded into a fitness career, my friend. So I'm wondering if we can start our conversation by you telling me what makes you so fabulous, my friend, and why you love what you do.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with, collegiate background. Small college sports was kind of my go-to. I played college football for a couple of years, but just having some of that experience has led me to athletic performance over the last probably 15 years. So some of that more relational can relate to what it takes to get to that next level, but also, the grind it takes and the commitment it takes to go to college and play sports. So I think that's why I can relate a little bit with the parents on that aspect, but also with the athletes that train as well. So we've been training athletes for in the area since 2012. I've been training since I was 16. So just a matter of a little bit of time difference there, but we've over the years developed relationships with people, and we've got some of the best athletes in the county, which is fantastic for us, but also it's good for them as well because they have somewhere they can train, but also somewhere they trust, and they trust me with their kids as far as training, speed development, but also helping them get to the next level as well.
And I'm curious, Aaron, based on your athletic background, I'm curious, when you work with these athletes and high performers, my friend, how much of your competitive spirit comes out trying to help them to maximize or optimize their athletic and peak performance, my friend? How competitive do you get to see your client retain or achieve their goals, my friend?
Yeah, so probably the last couple years I've kind of mellowed out a little bit, but I was a little bit more intense probably when I started out, just because I was trying to pull out the most out of each and every kid. But over the last few years, it's I've probably reined that back a little bit, just because it doesn't always click with each athlete as far as the intensity and kind of being in their face a little bit more than I typically would be. So it's just trying to now it's finding out like what makes them tick, what makes them motivated, but also providing them the tools necessary for them to be competitive, reach their full potential. But I probably do that in a little bit different way each time. So it's just a matter of talking to them, getting to know them a little bit more on a personal level, but also finding out what they want to do, how they want to get there, and what makes them more motivated. Because you know as well as I do, sometimes it's internally motivated, and sometimes it's internally and externally. So sometimes hearing all the noise from the outside, whether it's their parents or it's me or whomever, just trying to plant those seeds to get them more fired up than I am to get them to the next level. Because I can only provide them the tools. It's up to them to utilize those, right? And to
A-
maximize their capacity.
Absolutely, my friend. And I know that you also work with people over the age of 50 to try to help them optimize their fitness level as well, my friend. So I'm curious, what fascinates you to have that sort of capacity to work with a wide variety of people? And what do you get, what satisfaction do you get working with older adults as well, my friend?
Yeah, so that's kind of something that I didn't really fall into my lab, but I have a little bit of a background in kind of the clinical exercise capacities. So working with like transplant patients, cystic fibrosis, whether it's heart attack survivors, stroke victims, or vice versa, but also the aging population. So before I went on my own, I started working with pre and post orthopedic injuries. And a lot of those patients and people who needed my help and guidance were kind of the 50 and older. And so just in the last probably, I'll say 8 years or so, we've really maximized that and become kind of the go-to place for adults 50 and older. And I will say most of our adults that we train are female. That's just the way it's going to happen because they're one, I feel like they're easier to work with. There's less combativeness because as a guy, sometimes we don't want to be told how to do things, what to do, and it's easier sometimes for us just to do it on our own. But that's just the way it's worked out the last couple of years, and I think it's great because you get the competitiveness between the ladies as well, but also some of the guys we have too. Because when you miss, they notice, and when they miss, I notice. But it's also that encouragement factor, that community factor that we like to build into our training regimen to help one motivate them, but also hold them accountable as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Aaron, I'm wondering if you can talk about the importance of building community and really searching for ways to, attain the goals, fitness goals in a variety of different ways. Because, when you talk about working out and fitness, people learn differently and they respond to different sources of motivation. So I'm wondering if you can talk to me about the whole idea of building community and the importance that resonates with when we're trying to reach fitness goals. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that you kind of have to just for anybody has to find the right gym or the right atmosphere to go and achieve your goals. And I think we've done a really good job of that by one, no matter if it's your 12th year or your first day, I'm always trying to encourage each and every person to one, introduce themselves, or I take the time to introduce them to each other, so that way they know who they're working with, why everybody's there, and we all know the one reason they're there, and that's to get healthier and stronger and more mobile. That's the biggest reason everybody's there, but it also kind of breaks down the walls and the barriers of like the intimidation factor. Also, just the, I don't know, say the scariness of walking into a new spot that no one really knows. So having those introductions and, first and last name, what you do for work or what you did for work if you're retired, how close you live to the gym and what are your hobbies are kind of the biggest things that I try to focus on because Kevin, we've had a lot of individuals over the last few years who have never met personally except for in the four walls of the facility, and I've gone on 2-week vacations with each other, or going to the local sporting events, or just hanging out on a Friday night to have dinner, get to know each other on more of a deeper level than just a kind of workout for that. So that's the biggest thing we've tried to build at our facility, and I think we're doing a good job of it because people keep coming back. They're held accountable by not only myself but the people who they work out with as well. And if you miss, we're calling you out in the most polite way, but we also want to know where you were, what happened, why you weren't there, and just encourage you to stay on track.
Well, just like in business, the return customer is your best customer, right?
Yes, yes, that's exactly right.
Absolutely. Now, Aaron, I know, as you mentioned, you played collegiate football for a little bit, and I'm wondering, when you were on the offensive and defensive lines, my friend, in college, what did you learn most about yourself, and what lessons do you think your football career taught you about the principles that you want for the rest of your life, my friend?
Yeah, I think it's more of one of the biggest things was more of kind of friendship. And I know being on the offensive line, you have to rely on a lot of other individuals to one, not only kind of attack their assignments as well, but also it's hold you accountable and your feet to the fire on that. Because if I miss my block, then they're going to be mad at me. So just trying to have that friendship and companionship on there so that we were all on the same page. That's kind of one of the biggest things because even though, and outside of that, even on the, I played a little bit of defensive line too. It's just knowing your assignment and knowing that you can communicate with them. And, I've got your back and you've got my back for the utmost, determination to win a ball game. But I've had some of my longest friends from those couple years that I was playing collegiately up until this day. And that's, 20, almost 20, 21 years later or so, a little bit longer. So that's kind of the biggest thing. But some of the other things is like determination and just overcoming adversity. A lot of those things I probably wasn't the best player, but I knew if I showed up and put in the work, that my time might come. Unfortunately, it never came to where I got the playing time that I thought I deserved. But a lot of those things kind of helped me overcome a lot of things through business, life, through graduate school, and a lot of other things where I guess I probably could have given up pretty easily, but I kept going after. I kept showing up to practice, kept working hard, and eventually, my time was going to come for that. So those are probably some of the biggest things that I learned. But I mean, there's a lot. There's a long list probably that I probably didn't touch on, but those are the biggest ones so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And Aaron, I'm curious to get your perspective because college football has changed so much over the course of the last 5 years, even. And I'm curious to get your perspective on what do you think the changes in college football are good for the health of the game and the tradition that so many, universities and college fan bases have come to expect with college football, which has eroded a little bit because of the transfer portal and other things. It makes it harder for people to follow kids for 3 to 4 years as the traditional model of college football would have let us do. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on how you think the evolution of college football is going, the good, bad, and everything in between, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a great question, and my thoughts are probably pretty. I don't say they're biased, but I'm a Florida State fan through and through. I've been that way since I was three, even when I went to grad school. And I would say probably in the last 2 or 3 years, I don't pay as much of attention to the recruiting side of things or the wins and losses or what have you, just because there's so much going on and there's not a lot of commitment level. There's commitment when you're commit when there's National Signing Day, but there's no a long-term commitment. A lot of players are only there for just the season and they're hitting the transfer portal because they're getting paid. That'd have been great 25 years ago as well, but I think it's kind of watered down a little bit of the college sport. I'm not saying they shouldn't be paid, but it's just like every year you're having to like get a roster sheet and figure out who's on what team, who transferred, who's better, who's not, and who's gonna quit the next time. So I don't think there's a lot of loyalty anymore, and I think that's kind of hurt the college game because even with the players, no loyalty, and I would say on top of that, the coaches. How many coaches do you have that are staying more than 3 to 5 years? The expectations on that are if you don't win in 3 years, you're going to be fired. But growing up, Bobby Bowden was the coach. He was the coach all the way up until
He
my first year
died,
of graduate
really.
school.
Yeah.
So he kind of I say died loving the game, but also was there for so long, and you just don't have that anymore. So I think for me, I don't keep up as much as I probably would 5 or 10 years ago, unless I have kids that I've trained that are on those teams. So for me, I would say it's just not as fun. I don't watch it as much. I watch it with my kids at home, but I don't keep up near as much as I would, and I think that's just kind of maybe a burnout a little bit on the players and the coaches and just the way it's kind of evolved. It's pay to play now, and if you're not getting paid, you're not going to play, and if you don't get paid enough, you're going to quit and transfer, right?
Yeah, well, I think they opened a can of worms that they're having trouble getting the genie back in the bottle, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean, buddy. So,
escape.
we could probably spend another hour on that, but I want to get your opinion on the intersection between fitness and longevity and creating habits, my friend, because I know as someone with a disability, so I was born with cerebral palsy, so fitness is important to me, and I know that sustainable habits is something that also keeps me accountable. So I'm curious to ask you about your opinion between the intersection of fitness longevity and creating great habits and how that helps us to establish or achieve a better well-being. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, I think there's so much out there on social media and the influencer market that sometimes now you don't really know who to believe or what's good for you and what's not. I'm to the kind of satisfaction and just the longevity market of find something that worked for you, and it may not have worked for you 25 years ago, but if you're sticking to a plan, whether that's going to work out 2 to 3 days a week, whether that's walking for 60 minutes and doing resistance for 30 minutes, you're stretching, you're moving, and you're burning calories, and you're burning more calories than you're consuming. I think the longevity train is going to be a lot better for you than those who, are just, I won't say intense all the time. There's only, so much durability the body has until it starts to break down and you start to get hurt. And then once you get hurt, you can't do much. You're injured all the time. So usually what happens is you start, you're stress eating and then the pounds come up and then it's hard to get those things off. So I think it's just finding something that you really want to do and sticking to it and committing to it. And, over the years, I think those things change. So now what I did probably when I was 16, I don't do too much anymore. But I find it's finding it's the right thing for you. And I know that sounds probably pretty vague, but there's things that probably you would have done 5 years ago that you may not be able to do now. But it's just doing those things you can do more, compound those over and over, whether that's squatting with body weight or doing your calisthenics or going to the sauna or things that I think that's going to be more beneficial from you than trying to jump ship every time an infomercial comes out and says you need to do this, you need to take this pill, you need to buy this piece of equipment. because we all know fads come and go, and fitness trends kind of come and go as well. So finding the things that you like and do more of them is going to be more. It's going to be better for you in the long term to kind of, I guess you say, extend the longevity game for each and every person.
Yeah, absolutely. And Aaron, I want to talk to you about, elevating fitness after 50 and the unique challenges that come with training someone after the age of 50 and the importance that people after the age of 50 should have on their fitness level, my friend. So tell me about elevating fitness after the age of 50 and what do you think people need to know?
Yeah, that's awesome, awesome insight and question on that. But a lot of it is I get a lot of the used to kids that come into my facility. They used to do this and they used to do that. And sometimes, we're at a time and place in our life and with our body, as it ages, things become harder, joints become more immobile, and the used to kid stuff you can't do anymore. So we like to meet them where they are and find those things and those aches and pains that they've had, or trying to find the workarounds. And the workarounds are going to be, it could be, instead of doing a goblet squat with a kettlebell, we're just using body weight with a TRX, because physically that's where they are. And that's what you have to do for the meantime. Doesn't mean you have to stay there for a long time. It's just a matter of getting the blood pumping again and getting your muscles working like they have been, waking them up, getting them in fine tune to muscle soreness and getting them moving again, and then you can kind of adapt and progress that. But I think the biggest thing is just increasing your strength. As you increase your strength, you've got to have increased flexibility. If you don't have the flexibility and mobility throughout the joints, as you get stronger, things become tighter, our muscles grow. Sometimes our tendons get a little stiffer. We become tighter. We can't reach down and touch our toes the way we used to. So having a good combination of the strength, increased strength, and lifting heavier weights as we get older, but also focusing on your flexibility and movement and increasing your cardio respiratory exercise as well. I think that's going to be the biggest key for winning in the long game for those people 50 and older.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Aaron, I know that you've worked with NFL athletes, including, the Hall of Famer Bruce Matthews and the PGA professional Brent Snicker, my friend. So tell me about those experiences working with those athletes. And what do you think people need to know about the elite discipline it takes for elite athletes to be successful? What do you think people need to know, my friend?
Yeah, and those are some great athletes. One of those was kind of post Hall of Fame career, but just staying in shape in general. There's a brutal schedule, especially for Brant Snedeker as far as the PGA Tour when I worked with him, as far as getting his strength training in on top of his practice schedule, his playing schedule. It's kind of all over the place. So the biggest thing for those individuals is they have a really different mindset for that, of what they need and what they want. So just because I had something set in stone as far as the program, wasn't always what we worked on. It could have been low back pain over the weekend or something from a golf event. Now we got to come in and kind of mix and match on that. But having all those things dialed in and being very, very persistent on getting the lifts in, getting the movement in, but also with their nutrition goals as well. I think that's kind of the key differentiator for somebody like those guys, as opposed to say an average Joe. We all need those things. It's just theirs is on a little bit more intense level, and that's really just scheduling is the biggest part. It's finding the time to fit it in with all the 100 different things that are going on. They've got families. They're trying to do PR events. They're trying to, maybe be on the phone or meetings with sponsors, but squeezing those 1 to 2 hours in a week to get those lifts in are key, because they know it keeps them on track. And if they stay on track, their health and longevity, as well as their playing career, is on the line, right?
Absolutely. And I know that you do health and fitness coaching, but I also know that you manage your own a business, my friends. And talk to me about how you personally manage both health coaching and running a business, my friend. How do you find that delicate balance to be successful, my friend?
Man, it has a lot to do with planning and executing the plan and putting things on a calendar. Some of those things are tougher on some days, depending on the schedule. But it's more or less of like, I like to, I could probably be better at a lot of things, but writing things down, executing goals, achieving those goals, whether it's weekly or monthly, that's kind of the differentiator as far as like execution. Because what was it to say? If you don't write it down, it's more of just an idea. It's not going to be executed with those things. So reaching health and fitness goals with my clients, but also doing all the marketing, all the follow up, all the sales calls with clients. If you don't have a strategic plan of action for those things become a little hairy, and you don't remember who you talked to, who's coming in, who's not. And some days you may have, clients coming through the door, and you've got a lot of new people, and you have no one to meet those new people because you've screwed up the schedule. So I would say planning is going to be the number one thing, but execution is probably number two, and preparation. Got to always be prepared because there's always some kind of curveball being thrown at you.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, my friend, I have implemented a strategy with my staff, and I've told them if it's not on my schedule, I don't agree to do it because
Yeah,
you can't say yes to everything, right?
right. Yeah, you gotta learn to say no a lot more, right?
I'm learning. I'm a recovering yes addict. Okay. And Aaron, I'm curious to get your thoughts on these findings from the National Institute of Health that reported last year that only about 2.1% of seniors over the age of 60, buddy, meet the recommended criteria for optimal metabolic health. And it also says that, they struggle to meet specific points like their blood pressure and cutting down on eating bad foods for them and just overall their overall health. And it also said that for people between the ages of 40 and 59, my friend, the prevalence was approximately 9% of those people that only meet the recommended amount of optimal metabolic health, my friend. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on those findings. Why do you think those numbers are so low, and how we can help more people over 60 improve their metabolic health? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, those are kind of staggering stats. I thought it would be a little bit higher for that, but I think it's a lot of not poor education on just the health and fitness industry as well. There's a lot of fluff out there, and there's a lot of things that people will go all in on, and think they're going to get the best results, and some of it's just fluff. So I think that number seems to be super, super low, but it's also we're lazy as in Americans. Like as Americans, we're lazy for the most part. We only like to do stuff typically when our doctor tells us if we don't do something, we're gonna die. That's not the case for everybody, but that's usually when people start to make more of a informed decision as opposed to mitigating the risk way beforehand. I like to tell my clients, it took you 15 years to get this bad off, so it's going to take us about 30 to get you back on track because you're just in bad shape. And I think that's has to do with the food we consume, convenience factor of the food we consume, and maybe just a lack of knowledge of what people really need. I think exercise and fitness can be super simple and it can work for almost everybody, but we make it too complicated because we always feel like we have to look a certain way, be in a certain way, and look like the next celebrity or do the next workout that they've put on the paid programming on our TVs, and that's just not always the case. So I think if we simplify that and find exactly what fits their needs as far as whether it's male or female or their age category, I think we can all help to increase that number a lot more than it is right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Aaron, I asked you earlier about your own competitive spirit, but I also wanted to get your thoughts on how you help your clients have their own healthy level of competitiveness when trying to achieve their own sort of fitness or health goals because it's my belief if you have to be invested in the process to achieve the ultimate outcome. So I'm curious to ask you, what do you think it means to have a healthy level of competitiveness when achieving your fitness goals, my friend? What do you think that means to you?
Yeah, I think that's something we all need. It's something to one kind of hold your feet to the fire for that. You got to have something to reach, or sometimes it's just a matter of we're just going through the motion. What we're doing at my facility now, we have a lot of our adult clients. The big thing with the active aging adults is if you can straight bar hang your body weight for at least 2 minutes, 2 minutes straight, you've already reduced the mortality rate by I think over 20 to 30%. So we've installed that as a kind of benchmark for those, and that's a competitive thing that it's fun. Not everybody's really good at it, but they know they could be better at it, and that's something that we've installed to one, increase that competitive nature with our clientele, but also have a longevity marker for them, right? So some of them have only been able to do like 3 to 5 seconds, and they know the frustration is there, but they know that's something that they really need to work on. So each time we're working out, we're implementing some other exercise they can do for grip strength or just improving their strength. And we got others that can hold it for a minute and a half, and they only have another 30 seconds they need, but it's a healthy competition without having them be frustrated or giving up or quitting the gym. It's something that you can implement across the board. There's other things you can do as well, whether that's like a flexibility test or some other endurance test for them or a strength measure. It's just finding the right things to build that community like we talked about, but also make it competitive enough. That way they're not going to get frustrated and leave and stop what they're doing because somebody's better than them or they're holding it longer. Um, that it's sometimes it's hard to think about that, but that's what we've done to make it more competitive, but also fun as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm also curious to get your thoughts on this Tufts University study that revealed last year that 93% of all adult Americans are metabolically unhealthy, and some of the reasons that they give are, the sedentary lifestyle, people not taking the initiative to move, poor diets and eating habits and the rest of it. So I'm curious when you look at that number and 93%, and I'm wondering your thoughts on the importance people need to know about movement, and if they don't do it, it shortens their lifespan as well. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on those findings and how we can motivate more adults to get up and moving, my friend. What are your thoughts?
For 10 minutes or cutting back the intake of your sodas or maybe drinking one more bottle of water. Those don't seem very satisfying to some, but we're playing the long game with those things to reduce that number, right? The sedentary lifestyle of coming home after work and just sitting on the couch and watching 4 hours of TV, that doesn't do well for me. So it's a matter of getting out, walking the neighborhood, maybe inviting a neighbor over and going walking, or just the small things. It doesn't take that long to compile those small wins and victories for your health and fitness goals. And they don't have to be super extravagant. It's small. It could just be walking every other day or twice a week. And then once that becomes easier, add another day. There's a lot of different things you can do. Those are just some small things you can do, and the ones I just mentioned. But I think it's come to, maybe I don't have 2 hours to work out. Well, okay, great. How about 20 minutes? How about 10 minutes on your lunch break? You can take the stairs instead of the elevator. There's a lot of things they can do to mitigate those risk factors, but also help them in the long run. I just think sometimes they feel like it has to be more complicated than that, or it deems to be more complicated than it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, my friend, our friends over at the National Council on Aging say that fewer than 25% of Americans over the age of 50, they don't exercise regularly, my friend, and they're not meeting the guidelines again for aerobic or metabolic health, my friend. So, and they talk about the need to do this to increase muscle tone and strengthening. So I'm curious about your thoughts on those findings and why you think people over the age of 50 neglect their exercise routines, my friend.
Yeah, so from my personal experience, just from the people I work with, it's a lot of that has to do with aches and pains, whether that's arthritis or osteoarthritis or being overweight or having some other, maybe it's diabetes or joint pain or what have you, old injuries, prevent them from doing so. I think a lot of times um, it's harder to get moving and get started again after years of not doing anything. And so the short answer to that is they'd rather do nothing than something because something is a little bit more uncomfortable. And that's whether that's working out with me 1 day a week. You're going to be sore. Things are going to start to be, they're going to feel loose. Muscles are going to be tired and sore. And sometimes people don't want to deal with that. And that's just the hard facts of like, those are the things that are going to happen once you start moving more. Hopefully, you're increasing your flexibility, the mobility around the joint. You're going to get stronger, so you're going to have muscle soreness. But some people don't like that feeling. They don't want to sweat. They don't want to do certain things to get their heart rate up. And I feel like the misconception on that is you don't have to do all those things, but you can do some of those things to improve the longevity of your lifespan as well. That's sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow, but I've had some people over the years give me a long rap, a big sheet of all these elements and medications, and I've had heart valve replacement, I've got knee replacement, hip replacement. About a month into it, their exact words were, "I don't like the way I feel, so I'm going to go back to what I was doing." And what they were doing was nothing. So they felt better doing nothing as opposed to getting the movement. Movement's not supposed to be easy after a certain age, but as you know, strength decreases as we age, and it decreases at a staggering amount over the age of 50. And a lot of things happen with that. Grip strength goes down, balance goes down, and flexibility starts to decrease. Muscle stiffness and tightness starts to increase, and increased risk of falling. So those things, if you like those things, I guess you could do nothing. But I think a lot of people don't. So it's just a matter of sticking to doing those small things and preventing those things from happening and playing the long game, like I've said before. Because some of my oldest clients are 77, 78, and almost 80, and they're still doing what they can, whether that's 5 pounds, 8 pounds, or what have you, but they're still doing enough to where they feel good, they're more mobile, and they're improving their balance and strength to reduce the risk of falling and having those metabolic issues like you mentioned before.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have to tell you, my friend, my grandmother always used to tell me, if you don't use it, you lose it, my friend.
Yep.
And we make time for the things that we prioritize, right?
That is exactly right, and I think that's a good point because a lot of people make time for the community feel of going out to eat and drinking a lot of wine, but they won't put the time and effort into exercising, and they need more of the exercising than they do the consumption of food and wine and all the other things. But yeah, I totally agree with you.
Absolutely. And Aaron, I've got three quick questions left for you. And the first of those three questions is this, buddy. I want to know about your writing style and your writing process because I know you're a three-time best-selling author, my friend. And what's the main message that you hope people receive from reading your books, my friend?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is simplicity, right? I think a lot of times we can overcomplicate things, and just the way I wrote three of the books, two of the other books were kind of a composite book with about 16 or 18 other fitness pros. But it's how can I make mindset, active aging, and sharing my story as a health and fitness pro so simple that it may motivate other people to get going and to find maybe their passion for fitness or just get moving and reducing the risk of whatever kind of metabolic disease or ailments they have, right? I don't like to write super complicated because we have a lot of those books already, right? It's supposed to be a quick read, 30, 45 minutes, but also not so complicated that you've got to go buy three more books to figure out what I just told you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Aaron, I'd be curious to go circle back to college football for just a second and ask your opinion on how you I think we can fix the current situation we're in, buddy. Because I think we can both agree that it's important for kids to get compensated for what they do for their prospective institutions. But I also think they're losing out on the ability to learn discipline and overcoming adversity by having the freedom to transfer so freely, my friend. So how do you think we can fix this current college football conundrum that we're in, buddy?
Yeah, I think there's going to have to be, what would you say, maybe like a hierarchy of how you get paid.
Oh,
You get a base, and then maybe there's some incentives around that, almost like a NFL contract, right? If you breach the contract, you either have to you give up what you've been given, or you may have to give back. It's probably going to prevent some of that, under the table stuff where you're getting recruited to come and play for me for more money. It's going to take some of that selfishness out of it, but it's going to, maybe teach some lifelong lessons of, you've actually got to work and earn the money as opposed to be given it. I think right now there's not a lot of rules around it or just the way they can kind of manage it. So there's no real structure on that. So if I give you $1 million, great, I'm going to take it and leave, and then I'll leave the next year and go somewhere else and get 2 million, right? So there maybe have to be some kind of structure on that, or maybe I don't say penalties on that, but there's got to be something to where there's some risk reward, right? If you stay all 4 years, maybe you get paid more. If you leave, maybe you have to give up some of that. I don't know. There's probably there's not a really good answer to that, but I feel like there's got to be some way to maybe incentivize, but also prioritize those who stay longer than a year, and maybe give them a bonus if they stay all 4 years and graduate.
well, the academics seem to be lost in chasing the money today, right? So,
Yeah, it's more about the money, less about the degree, right?
well, because football only can last so long, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's important to do both. But also, buddy, I'm curious to end about asking you about your personal and professional legacy, buddy, and how you want that to be defined.
Yeah, so man, my biggest thing is how much of an impact can I make on the local community? If I'm known by the guy who served everybody with a smile, with compassion, and built those relationships, I think that's the biggest thing. I try to carry that with my clientele from relationships, and hopefully they like it so much that they refer all their friends. But I would like to say money's great, but relationships is more. If I can have a bigger impact in my local community by giving back, maybe it's offering scholarships to kids who can't afford it, or finding other means necessary to pour in the community besides, running my business. I think that's going to be the lasting legacy of myself and Premier Performance Training, which is my business in the community. I think people will probably remember me more for that than, how many scholarships or how much, NIL money their kid got.
Absolutely, buddy. And tell me if people want to get connected with you personally, what's the best way they can do that, buddy?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. It's at Premier Performance TN for Tennessee. You can go to my website, www.premierperformancetrainer.com. I'm on Facebook. You can like our Facebook page and shoot us a message, man. I'm happy to help if there's little tidbits or what have you. People have questions, concerns, and maybe just thoughts, or maybe you need some help. Just reach out, and I'm happy to help.
Absolutely. Well, buddy, as someone who loves to optimize their fitness level, because I know how big that is when it comes to maximizing longevity. I really enjoyed our conversation and appreciated your insights, my friend. And I want to thank you for the good work that you're doing in the fitness and sports industry, my friend. And thank you for agreeing to engage in conversation with me today. It's most appreciated.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it, Kevin.